My name is Jan Smith. I'm from Olympia, Washington. I'm currently an activist and a lobbyist in Washington State for family rights and for children's rights. It started off when my two grandchildren, actually it started off with my one grandchild, I have three now that are in system involved. And the first one that was born, they removed him from the hospital. And I went to the 72-hour shelter care hearing, and while I was at the shelter care hearing, Judge Casey was presiding. Judge Casey violated every human and civil rights judicial act that you can imagine, and not only was she violating my family's rights, but she was very comfortable in it, and it began to dawn on me that this courtroom in particular had been doing some of these things to families and had been doing it for a considerable length of time. Because I was so concerned about her behaviors in the courtroom, I then began to investigate. And as I investigated, I became more concerned, and the more concerned I became, the more I investigated. And this led into what is now 6 years straight of nonstop, 7 days a week, research, analysis, and really taking a look at the system. I started off local. I went to looking at the system from the state point of view, national, and now I'm very much connected internationally and am looking at UN policies and procedures that may be contributing to this. My three grandchildren, two of them were removed and adopted out, and they used those first two children, I should say the third child. When they had the third child, they used that child to coerce my daughter and son-in-law into signing off their rights on the two oldest ones. It was perhaps the most gruesome experience I've ever had. My daughter had labored for about 9 hours straight. It was a very difficult labor with the third grandchild. And as soon as that child came out, all of us were completely exhausted. She was exhausted, I was exhausted, my son-in-law, he was also exhausted. And within minutes, there was literally an entourage of CPS, social workers, you name it, barraging us in the hospital room, demanding that she sign off her rights. And it was emotional, it was excruciating. I was in the room, you know, almost hysterical, saying, don't sign it, don't sign it, don't sign it. They're coercing you, you know, this is not the right time. And so she didn't sign anything at that time, but she did make some kind of verbal agreements, and they let her keep my third grandson and then continued to push the issue of signing off her rights on the other two. Institutionalization is a very big issue because what they do is they begin to break down families mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and they cloak them with low self-esteem, and they cloak them with propaganda and with constantly holding up a mirror that says something about you is bad, and the parents begin to buy into this. Well, my family was no exception to that. My daughter and my son-in-law both have suffered extremely with low self-esteem and the mental and emotional breakdown of the state's behaviors. And as a result of that, they signed off their rights. And I don't get to see my grandchildren. I made attempts to get custody of them, and I will explain that further on the main body of my testimony. However, I will say that the documentation practices are unethical. The Attorney General's office, if their lips are moving, they're lying. Everything is geared towards prosecution of parents. And that includes the expert testimony. It's right there in the court rules. That includes the laws as they are written here in the state of Washington, but also the federal public policy, which I'll be covering more in depth. What needs to be changed is the laws need to get very specific. There's a wide parameter of decision making that can occur both in the court rules, in the RCWs, and in the federal public policy. They are giving such a wide berth of decision making from everything you can imagine, from soup to nuts, and there's literally nothing that a judge can do wrong, almost nothing, outside of maybe shooting somebody or rape. Anything else pretty much is allowed in court. Then you take it a step further into the federal public policy. And in the federal public policy, they have the same wide berth and decision making. So no matter what you do, if you go to the feds, you're going to lose. If you go to the state, you're going to lose. And also what needs to change is the use of experts and in the putting in of diagnosis orders, and the criteria that's being used to remove children has gotten broader and broader to where parents can get their children removed for just about anything.